Hi everybody, it's Pastor Lene Sorensen from Hope Lutheran in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. We're gathering together for week 3 of our study of Acts during this Eastertide. Today, our lessons come from Acts, the 2nd chapter, verses 42 through 47. I invite you to read that so that you know what we'll be able to talk about today. When I was in high school, I was very active at Trinity Lutheran in Yankton. I was part of the Luther League, and I can remember that it was a crazy time where there were all these cults around, and our Luther League sponsors were always really warning us to stay away from all these people in cults, and they had us watch some movies, and we talked about all kinds of things. Well, I specifically remember one day when I was home, and I was home alone, and there was a knock at the door, and it was 2 members of the cult that was called The Way. They wanted to talk to me about Jesus. And being this high school student that could have no bad ever happen to her, she said, "Oh, come on in." I invited them into our living room. We sat down. Mom and Dad were nowhere. I was all by myself, and we talked, and then I knew that we'd been told that they didn't get to eat very much. So I said, "Hey, wait a minute, I'm sorry, I'm gonna go get us some cookies and some lemonade." Got them some food and watched them eat. And then we kind of made some sort of relationship. And so I said, "I wonder if you'd like to use our phones to make a long-distance call to call your parents and let them know you're okay." And there was silence. They turned me down, but I think they knew there was a place they could come back to if they needed to. In our story today, we have the people of God gathering together, this new church, and trying to find a new way of being. They had had a terrible life under the pressure of Roman rule, and now suddenly there was a new freedom, and they were able to gather together and have these group meals where everybody ate and where they shared everything. And yet it wasn't sustainable. In fact, the Church of Jerusalem that was doing this communal living, they became so destitute and poor that the other churches, mostly Paul's churches, had to take collections up to try and help them. You see, here's the thing. Being equal and being equitable are not the same thing. To be equal is to be even or balanced, but to be equitable is to be fair and impartial. So I've seen this meme before where there's these little kids trying to look over a fence to watch a football game, or maybe it was a baseball game, and they're all different sizes. And so some kids needed more suitcases to stand on than others. For me, that's the difference between equal and equitable. Some people do need more. And it's hard for the church to figure that out. But that's a way we grow. And especially right now, in this pandemic, we're understanding people who need more. They say in the book of Acts that those apostles in that early church turned the world upside down. And I think today, the world is kind of turning upside down. In the midst of that, we can look for Jesus to help us find ways to be the church, an equitable church that looks for fairness and justice, that asks some of the hard questions, like, why is it that we've ended up with a society where poor people are suffering worse from this pandemic that doesn't care if you're rich or poor? Why is it that our long-term care facilities need so much more help right now, and we can't figure out how to do it? And if we learn from some of the answers to the questions that we have, can we figure out how to go forward and be better as church and as citizens of this world? Let's pray. God of justice, help us to look into this world and find ways that you are leading us to be bringers of of mercy and grace and justice and equity. Help us to seek you in the faces of those that we don't know. Help us to look for ways that we can be neighbor. Amen.